And it's time for Texas to pick a president that will lead us into a new American century. Please join me in welcoming the next president of the United States, Senator Rubio. Thank you. Thank you, Thank you. Thank you. Man, this is an important election. I'm so glad to be here in Big D. Everything's bigger in Texas. It's the only place that makes Florida seem small. Such a big place. So thank you for coming. This is a huge election. All right? It's a big, as big as this crowd. This is how big and important this election is. That's why we're getting closer now. These votes are starting to count. What you're going to do on Tuesday is not a poll. It is a vote. It counts. And what we are being asked to choose is not just the future of our country. That is ultimately what this election is about. But also the future of the conservative movement. Of what it means to be a conservative in the 21st century. For 36 years, okay, for 36 years, the conservative movement after the Reagan Revolution has been about limited government and about free enterprise and about a strong national defense. That was the Reagan Revolution. It changed the country in a way that re-embraced all of the principles that made us the greatest country in the world. But now, we are being asked to choose once again, what will it mean in the 21st century? So if the polls are to be believed, and the election results from some of these states continue to go, then we have to view what will the conservative movement be like if the front runner in this race right now, Donald Trump, is put in charge of the conservative movement. So last night we had a chance to talk about that. It's time to pull his mask off so that people can see what we are dealing with here. What we are dealing with here, my friends, is a con artist. He is a con artist. First of all, he runs on this idea that he is fighting for the little guy. But he has spent his entire career sticking it to the little guy. His entire career. All right, every business that he's ever run that's gone bankrupt. I mean, this guy bankrupted a casino. How do you bankrupt a casino? How do you bankrupt a casino? All right, but when all of these other projects went bankrupt, you know the first people that didn't get paid? The electricians and the plumbers and the subcontractors. Some of them went out of business because he didn't pay them. He says he's fighting for the little guy. What about the students that signed up for Trump University? A fake school. A fake school. Some of them took out loans. They told them, go max your credit cards. $36,000. And at the end of the course, the only thing you got was a paper certificate and a picture with a cardboard cutout of Donald Trump. He says he's fighting for the little guy, but in Florida, my home state, right now, he is hiring workers from other countries because he claims no Americans will do those jobs. This is the guy that says he's fighting to protect the American worker in Florida. There are 300 people that said, we'll take those jobs, Americans. He doesn't hire them. Instead, he brings in workers from abroad to do those jobs, and he goes on television saying, oh, we can't find qualified people to do that work. And there are qualified people raising their hands saying, we'll do that work. We have a guy that last night spent literally 30 seconds defending Planned Parenthood. He did it better than Harry Reid does it. This is what's trying to take over the conservative movement. It is time to open our eyes and see what's happening here. For the first time in 36 years, if Donald Trump is elected, the conservative movement will be headed up by somebody who says that when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians, he's not taking sides. Well, I'm taking sides. I'm with Israel. We had a guy yesterday that was saying on the stage, oh, if you don't support government takeover of health care, then you're in favor of letting people die in the streets. Well, I've heard that before in the Democratic debate from Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. So it's time. The charade is up. This is a con job where he's going to Americans that are struggling, Americans that are hurting, and he's implying, I'm fighting for you because I'm a tough guy. A tough guy? This guy inherited $200 million. He's never faced any struggle. He's never faced. The other day he told somebody, a protester, I'm going to punch you in the face. Donald Trump has never punched anyone in the face. Donald Trump was the first guy that begged for Secret Service protection. First guy. He's never punched anyone in the face. He inherited $200 million. I said it last night. If he had not inherited $200 million right now, he would be selling watches in Times Square or be doing one of those infomercials on Saturday morning where he promises to teach you how to flip properties, right? So we unmasked him last night. And let me tell you, it's time for you to unmask him as well. I bet you all know. You all have friends. You all have friends that are thinking about voting for Donald Trump. Friends, do not let friends vote for con artists. All right? So, you want to have a little fun? All right. What does Donald Trump do when things go wrong? He takes to Twitter. I have them right here. Let's read some. You'll have fun. All right, number one. Here's the first one. Lightweight Marco Rubio was working hard last night. This is true. The problem is, he is a chalker. And once a chalker, always a choker. I guess that's what he meant to say. He spelled choker, C-H-O-K-E-R, chalker. He called me Mr. Meltdown. Let me tell you something. Last night in the debate, during one of the breaks, two of the breaks, he went backstage. He was having a meltdown. First, he had this little makeup thing applying like makeup around his mustache because he had one of those sweat mustaches. Then he asked for a full-length mirror. I don't know why, because the podium goes up to here, but he wanted a full-length mirror. Maybe to make sure his pants weren't wet. I don't know. Then I see him pacing back and forth, and then he's huddled in the corner talking to somebody. He's like waving his arms up and down, and the person's trying to calm him down. So, anyway. But I'm a chalker. All right. Next tweet. Leet-weight chalker Marco Rubio looks like a little boy on stage, not presidential material. He meant to say lightweight, but he spelled it L-E-I-G-H-T. So he got that wrong. Looks like a little boy on stage. It's not that I look like a little boy. I wouldn't even be the youngest president, but he would be the oldest president ever elected. And it's like an 8-year term, so you start to worry. All right. Last one. Wow, every poll said I won the debate last night. No, this was him about himself, okay? Great honer. I think he meant to say great honor. I don't know how he got that wrong because the E and the O are nowhere near each other on the keyboard. Great honer. All right. So here's what, that's what I'm thinking. So how does this guy, not in one tweet, 3 tweets, misspell words so badly? And I only reached 2 conclusions. Number one, that's how they spell those words at the Wharton School of Business where he went. Or number 2, just like Trump Tower, he must have hired a foreign worker to do his own tweets. All right? So, guys, we have a con artist as the front runner in the Republican Party. A guy who has made a career out of telling people lies so that they come in and buy his product or whatever he does. You ever heard of Trump vodka? You have? Well, it isn't around anymore. Or Trump mattress, or Trump air, or Trump ice, or Trump water. Those are all businesses that are gone because they were disasters. Okay? Trump hot air, yeah. So we cannot allow the conservative movement to be taken over by a con artist because the stakes are too high. This country faces an election in which our very identity as a people is at stake. For over 2 centuries, this has been a special country, unique in the history of all mankind. But that was never an accident. That happened because the people who came before us made the right choices and incredible sacrifices. And now the time has come for this generation to do its part. And here's what I want you to believe, and it's not a slogan. It is the truth. If we do what needs to be done right now in this election, we have a chance to make this nation greater and more prosperous and freer than it has ever been in its history. That is the opportunity before us. But not if we stay on the road that we are on right now. Not if Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton wins this election. And they will win this election if we do not nominate the right person. And there is a reason why the media is pulling its punches when it comes to Donald Trump. Look, I've had articles written about me that I, had 10 traffic tickets, or my wife had traffic tickets because of a red light camera. And that's another scam that we should get rid of, the red light camera sign. I had a reporter go back and find that when I was 18 years old, friends and I went to a park after. I see some young kids here. I am against this, but I'm going to tell you what I did when I was 18. We went to drink beer in a park after hours at 18, okay? I knew you would cheer that in Texas. You're cheering. But this guy, Donald Trump, has a lawsuit against him for fraud. You don't hear anything. It's crickets. Because they know, first of all, they know if this guy's the nominee, we're going to have someone as the Republican nominee that defends Planned Parenthood, as someone who defends single payer for health care, as someone who won't take sides on Israel's side against the Palestinians. This is a dream for them. And number 2, because they know the minute he gets the nomination, they will shred him to pieces. And so they are looking for this. They are encouraging this to happen. We cannot nominate someone that is going to get shredded to pieces. Because the consequences are Bernie Sanders, a socialist, or Hillary Clinton, someone who was unqualified to be commander-in-chief, who put classified information on her email server, someone who lied to the families of the victims of Benghazi, and anyone who lies to the family of people who have lost their loved ones in the service of our country can never be the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. We cannot lose this election. You nominate me, we will not lose this election. You nominate me, not only will you have a real conservative, you will have a conservative that unites the Republican Party and brings us together after this circus act we've had to live with for 9 months. And you will have someone that will grow this party, not by changing our principles. We are going to take our principles to people who are living today the way that I grew up. People who have lived paycheck to paycheck like I've lived. People that have had to borrow money to go to school, real schools, not fake universities. Like people who are trying to raise their families in the 21st century, and how hard it's become to do that, to instill in your children the right values, values they teach in our churches, instead of the values that they ram down our throats in popular culture. We are going to unite the conservative movement, and we are going to grow it, and we will win this election when we do. And then we have a lot of work to do because we have a lot of damage to undo. First of all, you elect me president for the first time in 8 years. You will have a president that protects and defends and follows the Constitution of the United States of America. On my first day in office, as soon as I walk into the Oval Office, I will repeal every single one of Barack Obama's unconstitutional executive orders. You will have a president that defends your First Amendment right to live out the teachings of your faith. Not just to believe whatever you want, but to live out those teachings in every aspect of your life. And you will have a president that defends your Second Amendment right to protect yourself and your family. You will have a president, once again, that believes that the federal government is supposed to be a limited one. That most of the answers in our society don't belong to government. They belong in our lives, in our homes, in our families. The most important job I will ever have, the most important job you will ever have, is the job of a husband and a wife, of a father and a mother. That is where the real difference is made in America. And if government has a role, it is probably at the state level, not at the federal level. You will have a president that follows and honors and believes in the 10th Amendment, which means power belongs to the people through the states, not at the federal government. You will have a president that believes that the Constitution is not a living and breathing document designed to mean whatever you want it to mean. If it means whatever you want it to mean, it means nothing. The Constitution is supposed to be applied as originally meant, which means when I'm President of the United States, I will appoint people to the Supreme Court like Justice Scalia, God rest his soul, who understood the Constitution is to be applied according to its original meaning. There's a way to change the Constitution. It's not the court system. It's called Article 5. And I think there should be 2 changes to the Constitution, 2 additions. We need a balanced budget amendment, and we need term limits on Congress and term limits on judges. You elect me president, you will have a president that believes in free enterprise again. Real free enterprise, not corporatism. Not a system in which the people who have made all the money use their influence over politicians to get the laws they want that leaves them in power and leaves everybody else out. Now listen, my mother and father were not rich people. My father was a bartender at hotels. My mother was a maid. The kind of people Donald Trump hires from other countries. That was the job my parents had. And my parents never made a lot of money, but they achieved the American dream. And you know why they had a job? They had a job because someone was willing to invest money and risk it to open up a hotel. This is how we pull people up in this country, through economic growth, by making America the best place on earth to start a business or to grow one. And that's why we need to fix our tax code and roll back regulations and fully utilize our energy resources and balance our budget and repeal and replace Obamacare once and for all. I believe in free enterprise as the son of a bartender and a maid, because free enterprise is the only economic model in the history of the world where you can make poor people richer and you don't have to make rich people poorer. You can lift everyone up without pulling anyone down. You elect me president of the United States, and you will have a president that will once again keep this country safe. Not the disaster we have now under this failed commander-in-chief. The world is a very dangerous place right now, more dangerous than it was 7 years ago. You have a lunatic in North Korea with nuclear weapons and long-range rockets. The Chinese government hacks our computers, steals our inventions, and is massively building up their military. They're taking over the South China Sea. It's the most important shipping lane in the world. You see what Vladimir Putin is doing in Europe and in the Middle East. Iran is going to get $100 billion of sanctions relief, which they're not going to use to build orphanages. They're not going to use that money to build hospitals and orphanages. They're going to use that money to buy or build a nuclear weapon. And radical Islamic jihadists are spreading throughout the world, especially ISIS, that now has affiliates in over a dozen countries. And in the face of this growing danger, Barack Obama's gutting our military. Our army will soon be smaller than it has been since the end of World War II. The Navy will soon be the smallest it has been in 100 years. And the Air Force will soon be the smallest it has been in our history. This is unfair. This is unwise. This is risky. This is dangerous. It leaves us exposed. It leaves us vulnerable. And it's unsafe, and it's unfair to our men and women in uniform. They're still going into harm's way, but now with older weapons and less people fighting alongside them. And by the way, with rules of engagement that do not allow them to win. That will all change when I'm president. When I'm president of the United States military. Barack Obama is trying to close Guantanamo, even though he knows that about 30% of the people he's released from there have gone right back to terrorism. Spanish police just arrested someone the other day that was released from Guantanamo that was now trying to reincite terror. And so this is why I'm saying the war on terror is a fake war right now. It's not a real war on terror. You elect me president, we're going to have a real war on terror. The best intelligence agencies in the world are going to find the terrorists. The best military in the world is going to destroy them. And if we capture any of these terrorists alive, they're not going to have the right to remain silent. They're not getting a court hearing in Manhattan. They're not going to some jail in Texas. They are going to Guantanamo, and we will find out everything they know. You elect me President of the United States, and we will be an ally to our allies once again. Coming back to the issue of Israel. Israel is the only pro-American, free enterprise democracy in the Middle East. The only one. And this notion that Mr. Trump has that we're going to be neutral is absurd. We are going to be on Israel's side, and everyone's going to know that on my first day in office. You know how? Because as soon as I walk into the Oval Office, I will cancel Barack Obama's deal with the Ayatollah of Iran. And we're going to take care of our veterans again. What's happening now is a travesty. It's immoral. Last week, USA Today, headline, I'm paraphrasing, but it said this: calls to VA suicide hotline went to voicemail. This is outrageous. No one's going to get fired over this. Not under Barack Obama. When I'm President of the United States, if you are not doing a good job at the VA, you will lose your job. You will be fired. My brother's a veteran. I know many of you are. In fact, if you're a veteran, will you raise your hand so we can thank you for your service? Thank you. My brother was a Green Beret, 7 Special Forces, 68 through 71. He jumped out of an airplane one day in a practice jump, landed badly, knocked out his front teeth. And so every few years he has to do a dental claim with the VA, and it's a nightmare. He has to fight with them constantly. 1 out of 4 calls to my Senate office are VA claims. They act like we're doing them a favor. We're not doing veterans a favor. They did us the favor. They took care of us. We now need to take care of them. And when I'm president, we will. Because when I am president, veterans will be able to take their VA benefits to any hospital or any doctor that they want to go to. And by the way, many of our veterans don't stop serving once they come home. You go to any police station or fire station in America, you're going to see veterans working there. And I'm so tired of all these articles about how bad the police is and this. Let me tell you something. I thank God every single day for our firefighters, for our police officers, and for what they do for us. So as you can see, the stakes are incredibly high. Because 2016 is not just an election, it is a referendum. It is a choice about what kind of country will America be. If we stay on the road we are on right now, if we turn the conservative movement over to people that are not conservatives, then I'm telling you that our children will be the first Americans in history that will inherit a country from their parents worse off than the ones their parents inherited. We're going to be the first Americans that leave our kids worse off than ourselves. That is how high the stakes are in this campaign. We cannot get it wrong. We are not just choosing who the next president of the United States is. We are choosing what kind of country America will be. But we have another choice before us. And it is a choice that I am asking you to make in this election. It is a choice that re-embraces all of the things that made this the greatest country in human history, but applies those principles to the unique challenges of the 21st century. And for me, I'm passionate about this. Look, guys, I understand that in this campaign, right now as it stands, I'm an underdog. You know what? I've been an underdog my whole life. My whole life. My parents did not have political connections, and they did not have money. They came here in 1956 with nothing. They were immigrants from the island of Cuba that spoke no English when they arrived. The first words my father learned were, "I'm looking for a job." They didn't know anyone. They didn't have much of an education, and they were discouraged. When my parents first got here, it was hard. They struggled. They admitted to me years later, obviously, that they even wondered if they had made a mistake. They wondered, maybe we shouldn't have gone, maybe we should even go back to Cuba. You can't imagine how glad I am that they didn't. I may never have been born because they had me in their 40s. Yet, my parents stuck it out. And here's what's so amazing. They were underdogs too. But they worked hard and they sacrificed. And less than 10 years after they came here with nothing, my father was just a bartender on Miami Beach. And they bought their first home in a safe and stable neighborhood. Years would go by and they would retire with dignity. But you know why my parents were successful? They were never rich and they were never famous, but you know why they were successful? Because they lived to see all 4 of their children live a life better than their own. This has a name. This has a name. It's called the American dream. And the reason why I'm telling you my story, the reason why I'm sharing my story with you is because it's not just my story. It's our story. In America, we are all a generation or 2 removed from someone just like that, whether they came from another country or not. We are all just a generation or 2 removed from a father that sacrificed, from a mother that worked 2 jobs, from grandparents that did that for our parents, or maybe that's you doing it for your children now. This is what makes us different. Every country in the world has rich people, and we celebrate success. We don't demonize it. Most of the wealth in America is held by people that didn't inherit it. But what makes us special are the millions of people that are never going to be rich, and they're not trying to be rich. They're just trying to be happy. They just want to make enough money to buy a home in a safe and stable neighborhood, to retire with dignity, and to give their kids the chance to do all the things they never could. This is unique in the history of the world. Almost everyone that has ever lived in a society that tells you what you are allowed to be. They tell you what you are allowed to be based on what your parents did before you. Imagine living in a country that says to you, it doesn't matter how hard you work, or how long you try, or how good you are. Because your parents were not a certain kind of people, you would not be allowed to fulfill your potential. Well, I just described to you the human condition in much of the world today, and in all of the world for almost all of history. There's been one exception, and that's been our country. And that exception, that American dream, was not an accident. It did not happen on its own. It happened because the Americans that came before us did what they needed to do. They made great sacrifices. They confronted and solved their problems. Now the moment has arrived for this generation to do its part. Now the time has come for us to do for our children what our parents did for us. Now the time has come for us to do for the next generation what the previous generations did for us. Now the time has come for this generation to rise to the challenge of our time. And if I'm president, we will. If I'm president of the United States of America, let me rephrase that. When I am president of the United States of America, you will have a president for all Americans, even the people that don't like me, even the people that protest against me, even the people that are shouting I don't know what here at this event. Guess what? I'm going to cut their taxes too. I will never divide you against each other on purpose. I will never ask you to hate one group of Americans so that you vote for me. Because after 8 years of being divided, we need a president that loves all the American people, even the ones that don't love you back. When I am president of the United States, we are going to re-embrace the conservative principles that made this the greatest nation in history. And when our work is done, I know things seem tough right now. I know all the news is bad. I know every time you pick up a newspaper or turn on the news or open up your mailbox, there's bad news in there. But I want you to know what we have a chance to do together if we do what needs to be done. I want you to know what history is going to say about us if we do what needs to be done right now. It will say that this generation of Americans lived in the early years of this new century in a troubling time, a difficult time. And after 8 years of Barack Obama, we almost got it wrong. We almost lost the greatest nation in the history of mankind. But then in 2016, we remembered who we were. We remembered who we were as a nation. We remembered who we were as a people. And we rose up to the challenge. Like each generation before us, we confronted our problems and we embraced our opportunities. And because we did what needed to be done, our children became the freest and the most prosperous Americans that have ever lived. And the American dream didn't just survive. The American dream reached more people and changed more lives than ever before. And when our work was done, the 21st century was not just as good as the 20th century, it was better. The 21st century became a new American century. This is what we have a chance to do, and we must do it now. And so I am here to ask you not just for your vote, I'm asking you to go out and get other people to vote for me. You have 4 days to change their minds, and if you do, you will make me president. And when I'm president, we will do what needs to be done, and we will leave for our children what Americans always leave for their children: the single greatest nation in the history of all of mankind. Thank you, Dallas. God bless you. Thank you.